Literally the only thing I know is that they're crazy popular, and I feel like I'm missing out, and I want to join the club. Who's like been the #1 competitor, bad boy. It's to the point where I'm like, since nothing has happened between anybody, I'm like, I don't really care if it does at this point. I think she's already started some sort of rebellion, and then Selena will just be sort of like a secret weapon. Hello friends, welcome to the vlog. It is 10 p.m. or so on a Friday evening, and I'm officially starting this book. If you know anything about me and Sarah J. Maas, what's the other big series? ACOTAR, A Court of Thorns and Roses. Wasn't a huge fan of it. Not really memorable, to be honest. I couldn't even tell you much of what happened. Several people commented and were like, I think Throne of Glass is a better series. Definitely give it a try, blah, blah, blah. Here's the deal though, there's a million of them. Am I not even starting with the right one? Here's the thing, I don't even know anything about this. And this is listed second. Do I need to go back? Is this #1 or is this a prequel? Throne of Glass is the first one, I'm pretty sure. So the Assassin's Blade must be a prequel. And I know this is the series where like some people debate whether or not they should be read in a certain order or something. I don't know, I'm starting with this one. This is where we are. I do want to know how to say her name correctly. Is it Selena? Selena? Kalena? I avoided these for the longest time because they had those horrible YA covers, and these are so much more like new adult looking. Definitely was judging those books by their covers. But this changes the vibe a little bit and makes me think I might enjoy it. 2012, the year I graduated high school. Am I supposed to be reading all of this? Moving right along to chapter 1. After a year of slavery in the salt mines of Endovier, Selena Sardothian was accustomed to being escorted everywhere in shackles and at sword point. Okay, I just finished chapter 1. It was quite short. I do like short chapters because, you know, it makes the reading go quicker. Oh wow, I just read some of the acknowledgements. Sometimes I do that. Do you guys ever like sort of accidentally skip to the back and then you'll read the acknowledgements? It says it took a decade for Throne of Glass to go from inception to publication. That's crazy. Enough of the acknowledgements. We're not at the end. I don't need to be reading those. I was checking the page count. It's right at 404 pages. So we'll see how quickly I rip through this. I do like the short chapters. I know a lot of you are probably going to be annoyed with me throughout this whole video because there's so much I don't know. I'm going in very blind. Literally the only thing I know is that they're crazy popular. And I feel like I'm missing out, and I want to join the club, basically. And I couldn't do that with ACOTAR because I didn't like it. So I'm hoping that this will kind of convert me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And a coloring book. Chapter 2. Your Highness, said the captain of the guard. Both of them stared at her, waiting for her to bow. When she remained upright, Chow. These books make me feel so dumb. Like, I know how to pronounce things, but not when you're making up words. Is his name Chow? What? That doesn't sound... That's not a good name. I don't like that name. I wish there was a pronunciation guide. I've seen that in fantasy books before, where the author really is just like throwing syllables together. Bother me if I read the entire book mispronouncing names and then find out after the fact. So, gonna have to look that up. Throne of Glass name pronunciations. Update. I'm only on page 8, but of course I have to have some ambiance. So I found one of many Throne of Glass YouTube video things. So I'm imagining, I don't know if that's the castle where she's at right now. Not sure, because like I said, I'm on page 8. But it's giving me the vibes. What's weird about this book is the main character's name is Selena.
Selena?
Like Selena. And then another character's name is Kale. So then I'm just going to be thinking about Kale.
Your snack.
Good morning, guys. It is the next day. We just ran and got some coffee from a local spot that I love. Because it is a blue sky and fairly warm today. It's like, I don't know, in the 60s. I'm not quite ready for hot coffee yet, so I'm still on the iced latte game. And I did end up reading 50 pages last night. So we have the first 50 pages down of 400 pages. Is that what I said? I think so. Because it is decent weather, I'm going to clean up the patio a little bit. It's been raining nonstop the last couple of days, but I do want to get outside today since it's a blue sky and like no clouds. But I know that rug out there has probably got to be soaked through. So anyway, let's do a little like patio cleanup, and then I'm going to take the cat out there and read starting with chapter 8. So let's go do that. Yeah, we can start watching Christmas movies soon.
Christmas Carol.
Not too early, but soon. I knew, you knew. Ready? Ready? Yes. Sweet boy. Move. Can you move so I can put the stuff out there? Yeah, there you go. Come here. Hello friends, time for another update. I finished lunch. I had some leftover sushi. So I was gonna say that I'm nearly 100 pages in. So I'm on chapter 13, page 90 something, 92. I have 2 little tabbies so far, and that's it. So nothing really related to like the language being particularly beautiful, but I have marked 2 little passages that are like things that I'm foreshadowing. I was gonna make some predictions, and then it would maybe be kind of fun for you guys to like watch as I make predictions, because like if you've read this book then you will know if I'm right or wrong. So the first passage that I had marked was on page 29. This one was her backstory. So somebody finding her, whoever Arobin Hamel is, I don't remember. Oh, her mentor and King of the Assassins. Him finding her half submerged on the banks of a frozen river and bringing her to his keep on the border, and then training her to be his finest and most loyal assassin. So I always like to mark those passages so that I can go back if I like forget something. So that one's not really foreshadowing. But on page 69 in chapter 10, there's a passage where we talk about somebody, I think the king himself, many people he has killed more than she has, even though she's an assassin. People undeserving and defenseless. He destroyed cultures, destroyed invaluable knowledge, destroyed so much of what had once been bright and good. His people should revolt. Aurelia should revolt, the way those few rebels had dared to do. She's been trying to find lots of opportunities to escape, and I feel like this is foreshadowing, and she's gonna lead the revolt. I feel like it's gonna be like a Hunger Games kind of situation where the girl, sort of like the underdog, realizes how corrupt the system is, and then she spearheads the rebellion. I also feel like we're gonna get that backstory eventually, hopefully, so I'm gonna keep reading and find out. Okay, another update. I just hit page 100. I'm on 103. I literally just finished, what chapter was that? I'm on 14 now, so I've read a chapter. And I have a couple of more predictions. Just met Princess Nehemia, and so I think that because it's very like strongly suggested that she has already started some sort of rebellion, I no longer am guessing that Selena is going to be the spearhead. I think Nehemia is already spearheading it. It's like already happening behind the surface. It says she poses a threat to the king's rule over her home country. I think she's already started some sort of rebellion, and then Selena will just be sort of like a secret weapon kind of situation. I love the idea of it being like what she presents herself to the world as a princess, but then she's like secretly doing all of this really cool like rebel stuff behind the scenes. Alrighty guys, we're switching things up. I am on the treadmill. I've been sitting all day. Well, we did go to the park this morning and we did walk a mile. So technically I have already walked a mile for the day, but that's not as much as I would normally do. So I'm on 108, page 108. They are training, and they just found out this is going to be kind of spoilery, I guess. But I assume most people probably watching this are people who have already read this. So anyway, they're in a competition. And like that's the whole reason why Selena is there, is because she's been chosen as one of the competitors, one of the future potential champions. There's like 24 of them, I think, total. They've been there for like at least a week, maybe a couple of weeks. I'm not 100% sure on the timeline. That's something that could probably be made like a little bit clearer, Because I think she just said in the last chapter something about like, in the last couple of weeks, and I'm like, it's been weeks already? Because it kind of just feels like days, but maybe I read it wrong. The first person, like, competitor has passed away, and it's not because he, like, couldn't handle the training. They find his body shredded to ribbons. So that's not good. So there's obviously some other layer happening with the plot where it's going to kind of turn into a, I don't think it's going to fully turn into like a murder mystery, but like obviously they're going to find out, I would assume, who's doing this and who's like picking them off. I'm going to assume it's like another competitor, right? Like somebody who saw this guy as a threat and wanted to take him out. Friends, it is the next day. I'm being quiet because boyfriend is asleep in the next room, but I wanted to give you an update so far. I just read like 20 pages or something, so I am pretty much at the 50% mark, which feels good. It is pretty bingeable, I will say. And that is kind of the whole thing about these books, is like the pacing is, you know, pretty good, and it keeps you, you know, moving through it fairly quickly. I pretty much got to, I was maybe like 10 pages shy last night of getting to my goal, my page count goal of 200. So I'm going to try to get to page 300 today and then 400 tomorrow so that I can, you know, finish it up fairly quickly. Been a couple of things though, some more predictions, but also just some odd things. So let me go back to, I have quite a few more little tabbies in here. One of the things that I didn't mention the other day, the two, like, who I assume are going to be like love interests, even though like nothing has actually happened romantically. And I thought this was like going to be like A Court of Thorns and Roses, where it was like romantasy, but I guess it's not. It's just fantasy, which that's a whole other thing we could talk about, whether or not this is fantasy. Yeah, the Kale and Dorian. So Dorian's the prince, Kale's the guard, the captain of like the guard. They're standing outside her door late at night. She's having a grand old time. They think she's asleep. She's been like uncovering these like hidden tunnels under the castle, which I thought was kind of a fun little scene. She's trying to uncover things about these like murders that are happening. But they're standing outside her door. I think it's Kale. He's trying to convince himself he's not jealous. He was fairly certain she was a virgin. But did Dorian know it? It probably made him more interested. He sighed and eased the door open, blah, blah, blah. And then he goes in and gives her something. What? Why are we discussing that? Why are we discussing... No. It makes Dorian, first of all, sound like such a creep. I get that this was published in 2012, and that was definitely a thing that you saw in YA literature at the time. Like, I know Twilight was sort of the big one where it was discussed, this idea of purity and virginity. But, like, she's a grown woman. You know, she's not like a 16-year-old. Isn't she supposed to be, like, 20 or something? I thought that was very bizarre that that had to be brought up. And then the other thing I had just said was, like... about the, like, you know, no romance has happened so far, like, whatever, that's fine. It's like, if that's gonna come up, if that comes up at all, we're being teased a little bit too much. It's to the point where I'm like, since nothing has happened between anybody, I'm like, I don't really care if it does at this point. We're 200 pages in. Like, at this point, I don't really care if anybody like hooks up or falls in love or whatever. I do have a suspicion about Princess Nehemia. I think she might be a bad girl. She might be the murderer. I don't know. She says something about like when Selena is explaining how the different bodies of some of the competitors have been like eviscerated. She's like, the man's body was missing its vital organs, like someone had split him open from neck to navel. And Nehemia's like, what else was missing? I'm a little sus that she's like, well, what else is missing? Like, how do you know something else is missing? And she obviously is like, we know that she has this whole like rebel thing happening, so she's fully capable of like wielding a sword, even though she's this like pretty princess. So we know she could potentially do it. Like, she could be capable of it. She does make a reference to Lord of the Rings, a very subtle one, where she's talking about like gates or like portals, like between worlds, like between the human world and then whatever other realm she's talking about. There's no actual real clear description. She just says realm. So I don't even know if Sarah J. Maas knows because she's just saying other realms. Yeah, Selena is trying to decipher what all of these marks mean. And I don't know if we're supposed to be saying weird marks, wired marks, word marks. I don't know because there's no pronunciation guide. But yeah, she's talking about these different gates that can open different portals and lead to other realms, and so things can go back and forth between the realms. She mentions fell creatures, and at first I was like, I don't know what that means. And it's from Lord of the Rings. I guess it's fine if she's like sort of subtly tipping her hat to Tolkien. I was like kind of taken out of the story a little bit because this obviously, we're not set in our world in this book. And so it was weird. It'd be like, you know, there being like a Harry Potter reference or something. It doesn't match the world of this book. I don't know. I think I'm overanalyzing it a little bit too much, but... And then the other thing, and I'm probably going to get into this more in the actual, like my actual review of it at the end of this video, but this is very much fantasy that is just set in a sort of fantasy land where there are castles and swords and, you know, princes and princesses, like just for the vibe. It's not really, I don't really feel like I'm in a fantasy world, if I'm being completely honest. This gave me some high hope because this is a really detailed map. This is an amazing map. And it definitely had me thinking this was going to feel more like fantasy. I think it feels a little bit more like set dressing. It feels a little bit more like the author wanted to be able to talk about princesses and princes and set it in a castle and have them do some like sword fighting and sword training. So therefore it's fantasy. But it just doesn't, I don't know. I'm going to have to kind of stew on my opinions before I can like fully articulate what I'm trying to say. But I feel like if you easily swapped those things with like science fiction stuff or, you know, any other kind of genre, it would still be fine. Like, it would still work. And it kind of lets me know that it's not a very deep world, if that makes any sense. It feels a little bit papery and thin, but also I'm aware that it's like an eight book series and this is book 1. So I would assume the world expands quite greatly as you continue to read all of the books. But I don't know. Alrighty friends, I am back inside. It was a little chilly out there, to be honest, so made myself a coffee. Keep finding a million of these. There's so many different ones. I guess because this book series is so popular. There's lots of different ones to pick from. So this one's really pretty. It's like a little window? Archway? Balcony. I don't know. We have a new potential bad guy. Instead of Nehemia, which I think it still might be her, she still might have something to do with it, but Kane, who's like been the #1 competitor bad boy. He seems to be, I think it's suggesting that he's sort of like transforming or something. She's talking about how he's like running faster than he should, and he seems to be gaining like 10 pounds of muscle every day or every week. So I think he's gonna be sort of a possibly Jekyll and Hyde type character. Alright guys, it is time for another update because I think I might be right. We're at the end of chapter 35, so I'm on page 270, so I'm 30 pages away from my goal. Princess Nehemia. I've had some suspicions about her from pretty early on. Since page 201 is when she kind of, I think, let slip the fact that she knew like more details about one of the murders than she let on, or than she should know, if that makes any sense. So since page 201, I've had like a like very particular suspicion. And yeah, at the end of chapter 35, we're getting some information that she might not even be who she says she is. She is faking her inability to read the common language, like the common tongue that everybody in Adarlan can speak, but they just had a scene where they were in the library and Selena's been trying to like look through all these books and figure out what all these runes mean, and it's like midnight and she goes because she finds some runes under her bed very creepily, like written in chalk, so like maybe she's the next victim kind of thing. Nehemia is like already there. She won't tell her what she's reading and she like runs away kind of quickly, like she makes it very obvious that she's like kind of being shady. She shouldn't be able to read books that are advanced as what they are, so we know that she's been lying by omission kind of thing, because she's been faking the fact that she can't read their language very well. Anyway, basically that's what I'm thinking is happening, is that Nehemia is in fact either the conspirator or a co-conspirator or something. I'm definitely like intrigued enough to keep reading for sure. I haven't decided yet. I mean, it's gonna have to end in such a crazy way in order for me to want to pick up the second book. So hopefully it wraps up fairly quickly, because I do just want to know who did it. Alrighty guys, change of plans. I might actually finish this book tonight. I very well might. I'm on the treadmill, and I'm on page 338 of 404. I'm gonna keep going and possibly finish it tonight. Good morning, guys. It is the final morning of this reading vlog. I have some emergency in here, and then I'm gonna have some mushroom coffee after. I am in the home stretch for sure. I was gonna try to power through and finish it last night. I got to page 384, so I'm on chapter 52. I literally have this much left and my eyes closed. I could not keep my eyes open. It was only like 11 o'clock, so it wasn't like that late, but I literally have this much and I couldn't do it. I couldn't keep my eyes open, so We're gonna finish it here literally in the next like 30 minutes after I make my coffee, and then I will give you a final review or final little overview. Quite a bit has happened since my last update because we're past the climax now. The climax was like the final, like the test where they decide who's going to be the King's champion, and there were definitely some kind of fun twisty bits in that. I haven't mentioned the character Caltaine, and every time I see her name I call her Caitlin because of the way it's spelled. Anyway, we've never liked her. She's kind of one of those people who is just trying to climb up the social ladder and get to like a higher position in the castle. Basically, she wants to be queen, I guess. And so she's very conniving, and she tried to sabotage. That was kind of the big thing, was that she tried to sabotage Selena's potential winning of the competition. I don't want to spoil too much, even though I know everybody and their mom and their dog has read this book because it's been like 12 years since it was published. I'm gonna make some coffee. Let's finish Throne of Glass. Okay, friends, it is the end of the night. I have finished editing this video up to this point, this moment, in which I need to give my final thoughts. So I literally have a sticky note with a few things written on it, and the book, obviously. Mo, are you gonna help me? Huh? Are you gonna help me? He's sitting here observing me. So I did end up putting quite a few little tabbies in there because I was trying to you know, pick up on all the foreshadowing and kind of make it a little bit more interesting for you guys, because I know a lot of you have obviously read this book. I have to preface by saying I will never know what 18-year-old me thinks about this book. It's like if I tried to read Twilight now, I would probably think it was garbage, but I enjoyed it in middle school, you know? So it's like the reason why I say 18 is because this came out in 2012 and I was 18 in 2012. So yeah, I will never know if I would have like eaten it up and really loved it and continued the series, and maybe I'd be just as big of a fan now as everybody was then. It was the covers, man. It really was the covers that turned me off, which is so sad, and that's on me, honestly, for like judging covers. But anyway, so this is like my 30-year-old perspective on these books, and I am so far beyond the demographic for these now, because obviously they're YA. So I tried to read them through a YA lens, and I think I would have enjoyed them a lot more, obviously, you know, if I was younger. I will not continue the series. I did officially decide I'm not interested enough to find out what happens, who ends up with who, because there was really no romance in this. I mean, there was like one kiss, I think. I was thinking it was going to be a little bit more like ACOTAR, which maybe it's a good thing because those books are very spicy for being what they are, for being like young adult. I don't think that they should be. They should definitely be new adult. In my local bookstore, they actually changed like where they are. They put them in like the normal fantasy. Like when they redid the new covers, they put them in the normal fantasy section. Sorry, I need more light. That's a little better. I'm gonna pretend that I'm Selena, like charging into the underground tunnels under the castle. That was probably my favorite thing, was just her being in those tunnels underground. I thought that was so cool and like creepy and dangerous. Like that was really the only like thrill I got. The actual tests where they're like climbing up the castle wall and all of that, it did feel very like, you know, kind of like a Hunger Games challenge or something, but her just being in those little catacomb things, That was the coolest part to me, honestly. I wish we would have had more stuff like that, like more scenes like that. I think part of the reason why I don't want to continue them, honestly, is because there's so much debate online about which freaking book comes before or after the next book. It's ridiculous. There's a whole Reddit thread. I got so sick of scrolling through it, I just like stopped. I just closed out the tab. The way that it's listed in the book, and I'm sure everybody probably has their own opinion, but the way it's listed in the book is Assassin's Blade is first because it's like a prequel, it's Celaena's backstory. It does make sense to maybe read that one first because that would be like chronological. But then I also get, you know, the point of a prequel is to kind of like go back whenever you want to know more about the character. And so some people are saying, actually, if you read that one like second or third, you're kind of reading about her and learning more about her at the same time and sort of at the same rhythm as you are learning about the other characters. So everybody's got their own thing, and I guess even on like the official website or the wiki or whatever, it will even change sometimes, like the order that it goes in. The fact that there's like no clear delineation or like there's no clear order is just weird to me. So that's part of the reason why I'm not continuing. And then the other reason was our main character, Celaena. She's obviously sort of a hashtag strong female character, and I'm all for that. I'm all about that. But I will say it's kind of like when you're watching like a superhero movie or like you're watching John Wick or something, and you kind of know they're not gonna die and they're kind of safe because they are who they are. She's supposed to be the #1 assassin in all of Aurelia, in like the whole continent basically, or the whole kingdom. And so even though she's like beaten and broken and she's basically come out of slavery and she has this really dark past and she's got these challenges and she doesn't know if she's strong enough and blah blah blah, you kind of know the whole time, and this is a bit of a spoiler I guess, you know she's gonna end up on top. Like, you know she's probably gonna win. Like, was I surprised at the ending? No, I was not. Not that she's not like a compelling enough character to continue reading, but also kind of because I'm like, well, you're always gonna win. Like, you're always gonna be, if you're the #1 assassin. Like, she was basically like, she was constantly holding herself back. That's what Kale, the captain of the guard, was always like, don't show them all that you have, you know, you have to hold yourself back. And like, she would like purposefully miss her mark during archery and that kind of thing. And honestly, it's kind of boring to read about somebody who's like so good. They're just like, you know, you just get the sense that she's like this perfect assassin and she has to hold herself back that she's so good. I don't know. She doesn't really feel like an underdog. And I thought going into it, when we open like and she's in chains and then we hear about her coming from like this like basically like labor camp, I was definitely expecting sort of an underdog story, but that's not really who she is at all. I mean, I guess you could say that in the beginning, rags to riches type story, you know, she's like a street rat who's been like saved from drowning or something. The romance, yeah, it just wasn't enough for me. It was almost like the opposite of ACOTAR, where ACOTAR's like the type of scenes that you're getting and like the dialogue between them during those like kind of spicy scenes, you're like, this is like kind of ridiculous and cringe and it's a little bit too much. This was like the opposite. Like, there wasn't, I guess it's supposed to be slow burn. It is the first book in a series, obviously. Like, there's many more, you know, there's like 8 more books or 7 more books or whatever for her to continue developing those relationships. But I wasn't there for Dorian. He was not my guy. Kind of, you know, like the spoiled prince. And Kale was so much more interesting to me. And you do kind of get, you know, a sense of them kind of being together. You know, you get the sense that like in book 2, maybe something kind of develops between them. But I wasn't there for it. I just didn't really feel like any of the relationships between any of these characters were decent. The world also was not developed. I did not feel super ingrained in this world. I feel like the heavy lifting is kind of on the reader to sort of imagine all the things that you imagine in a fantasy world, but I didn't know, like, are there creatures? Like, are there, like, she mentions fell creatures at one point in time. She briefly mentions like fae, but I was like, I just didn't know, like, what kind of creatures are in this world, or like what kind of magic systems, if any. All we hear is that the king like wiped out the use of magic, so it was like there at one point but not anymore. And it's like, are people practicing underground? What's, like, I just had a lot of questions. And again, it's the first in a series, so obviously she may be like setting up a lot of questions for the reader so that she can eventually answer them later in the series. And then, for the love of God, for the love of Aurelia, put in a damn pronunciation guide. Nobody knows what you mean when you put random vowels together or consonants together and you're not using them phonetically. That would have helped me a lot. I still don't know. I still don't know the way some of these words are supposed to be pronounced. So that was a frustration that I had. We need to at least know how to pronounce your characters' names. I probably could have just gone on to the audiobook, honestly, and kind of like scrubbed around until I found the word that I was looking for. But I've even heard some audiobooks are wrong. Like I've even heard some authors complain about the way that the audiobook narrator pronounces a word. So you don't even really know for sure. And I think that's everything. I honestly probably, if I really sat in here and thought about it, I could probably come up with a few more things, but I'm tired. So thank you so much. If you made it this far, you deserve a gold star. And that rhymed. And I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.